says no, there's something wrong with the general narrative and view around COVID-19, they're going to come for you. They're going to come for you hard. We've had a lot of stuff aimed at myself and co-leader in the party, Jamie Lee Ross, and it's censorable. You know, I'm a ordinary fish and chip New Zealander, brought up in a very, very ordinary, average, everyday upbringing, father of 6, grandfather of 2, and, you know, little farm and just, you know, getting on with my life. But one of the things that I saw pretty much the same way that you did, and you were part of the inspiration process for me to take a stand, is that you saw these restrictions of freedom, the rampant destruction of democracy, based on what we now know for sure is faulty information, which emanated out of the Imperial College in London, which was propagated further by Anthony Fauci, and then further underlined by the WHO. But the interesting thing is that the things that we were saying early on around the lethality of the disease, stuff that you were saying at the same time, Rashid, that I had picked up on enough to doing my own investigation, sort of added to become a pool of great information counter to the narrative. You know, back then when I said that, people were saying, look, this guy's a conspiracy theorist, you know, and all the rest of it that goes with that. But what happened was, of course, now we have the WHO saying lockdowns don't work, elimination strategy will not work, CDC backs that up. They've now fessed up that the lethality of the disease was anywhere between 0.5 to 1% that they admit. We see other quotes here from epidemiologists saying it's in the 0.3 range to 0.8%, and then you start talking about the infection fatality rate, which is extremely low. And so that, along with the verification from these organisations such as WHO, CDC, Stanford University, has now mainstreamed and centralised the very things that they were marginalising my party about when we first said it. So it can't be gainsaid any longer. It can't be called conjecture, conspiracy. It's mainstream, recognised now, and you must feel absolutely vindicated in some of the things some of the things that you said, Rashid, because you were saying it long before me. That's for sure. And you know, and now it's accepted practice. You know, Sweden's epidemiologist that led Sweden through into herd immunity without locking down Sweden, Dr. Johan Gasek, is now employed by the WHO as a chief advisor around the COVID-19 pandemic. So I think the next thing that we can see is that COVID-19 will be reduced in its pandemic rating, and you're going to start to see some very, very fast backpedaling. But the thing that astounds us here in New Zealand is that despite these organisations being referred to right up early on as their primary source of information, they're acting in complete defiance to these organisations, and we've got to question why. Why are they persisting with their lockdown strategy, which is causing so much distress, causing so much pain and concern, people committing suicide because of it, people losing their livelihoods, their businesses, their marriages, you name it. You know, social violence increasing, domestic violence increasing, general disease amongst the New Zealand society because of these lockdowns. You know, people now distantiated from each other because it's now these two kinds of people in New Zealand now, those who wear masks and those who don't. So it just goes along with the whole agenda to divide people, whether it be by race or by mask wearing. And you know, I guess in the last few weeks our message has expanded. I sent you the link to the largest freedoms rally that my party, Advance New Zealand, organised in Auckland last week. You know, there were thousands of people at that, Russia. There, you know, we gave ourselves a week.
That's fantastic. Thousands. That's amazing.
I know, we were so thrilled. I gave us a week to organise it. Some people that were arranging weekly protests, a fantastic group called Liberty March. We partnered with them, but took over the general marketing of the event. And everyone said, "Look, you know, you've only given yourselves a week. What do you think will happen?" I said, "I know what will happen. We're going to have thousands of New Zealanders turning out." And bang on, that's exactly what happened. But true to form, the media says we had 1,000 people. We had about 4,000 to 5,000 people at it. it. You're familiar, of course, with Auckland. We had, people from our main square, Aotea Square, in the top end of our inner city. We had a tail of the march that went from there to the very, very downtown bottom part of our main street, Queen Street, and it just went on and on and on. The tail, the length of the march, and I was deeply humbled by that, because people came up behind our party, Advance New Zealand, said, no, we will not be lied to. No, we don't believe this government anymore, and no, we're not going to stand for these lockdowns that no longer have a medical basis.
That's fantastic. That's exactly what we need, right? That's exactly what we need. It's interesting too, your observation that they're they're basically defying the CDC's and the World Health Organization's regulations and their most recent conclusions, and that the question is, why are they doing that? And I completely agree with you. It's very, very suspect. At the very least, it's very suspect. And I think it comes down to they did not expect there to be backlash. In fact, I remember hearing recently that Bill Gates made a comment on mainstream media that the one problem that they didn't anticipate was the freedom movement in the United States. Well, I guess he's got news. There's freedom movements in New Zealand as well, and there's freedom movements in the UK, and there's freedom movements in Germany, and there's freedom movements in Russia. I was talking with Randy Jackson, Michael Jackson's brother, about 5 or 6 days ago, and Randy told me that 2 days prior to that, there had been over 50,000 people that marched in London, and BBC didn't cover it, mainstream media didn't cover it. He said he thinks like they could have been between 50 and 100,000 people, but he said that at the very least it was 50,000 people. He said they had all the streets blocked off at Trafalgar Square, and they marched. So there's a lot of people all over the world with this freedom movement. It's because people understand that they have to stand up for their physical rights, and if they don't, they're going to lose not just their right over their own health freedom, but right over their entire body, and beyond that, they're going to lose all autonomy. And so it's one of those things. And I'm actually, it's interesting right now. I think we're getting censored right now because the internet feed keeps on blocking, and I'm in a hotel, and they've given me the boardroom, and they've given me direct, highest speed internet connection. So there should be no reason for us to not be getting the whole thing, but apparently we are being censored. So I don't know where Dell is right now, but hopefully he'll be signing on here any minute.
Yeah, no worries at all. And just in line with what you're saying there, Rashid, here in New Zealand, the media are completely hostile. They really, really are. And what's happening is that, they've taken basically what amounts to me being an ordinary, everyday citizen. I've never had any desires to be a politician. You and I have spoken at length about that, and you share my thoughts on that as well. And they've taken an ordinary citizen and tried to criminalise me as much as you can think of. But the thing that really astounds me is the hostility of some of the minor parties that we have here in New Zealand that just cannot believe a party like ours can be born 12, 13 weeks ago, have a couple of million people follow us, the third largest membership in New Zealand in that short time, and we're relevant to the media. It's a love-hate relationship with the media here. They love to hate us, and
there's no such thing as bad publicity.
Well, my co-leader Jamie Lee Ross says it's better to be looked over than overlooked. Yeah. So true statement, I'm afraid. But they really have got it out for us. The media here is very leftist. It's very complicit. It's definitely got.
Stop you for a second.
Yeah, sure.
Let me stop you for a second, because here's the thing: the media everywhere is left, but here's what's happening. People know now, the memes are that if you want to hear the truth, see what's being censored and see what the media is saying, is take the opposite, because that's the truth. So you're on the right side of history, and that's the key thing. Because there was an old saying, I walked off stage once after giving a presentation about 15 years ago at a cancer conference, and I had been basically, if they had pelted me with rocks and garbage, it wouldn't have been any worse. And because I went completely against what the conventional medical adage on cancer was. And when I walked off, one of the doctors sitting in the back of the room, I didn't know who he was at the time. I knew of his name, but I didn't know that was who it was. It's a doctor named Dr. Dawes from Germany. And as I walked off, he says, as I walked on the stage, he walked by him, he goes, "You remind me of me 10 years ago." And then he goes, "All right, I'll lie, 25 years ago." And so, I was like looking at him, he said, "I just want you to remember one thing, nobody kicks a dead horse." So that's the thing that I want you to remember. Nobody kicks a dead horse. If you were a dead horse like the rest of the people running for parliament, guess what? Nobody would be talking about it. But the fact that they're beating you up and they're kicking you, that means that they're scared of you and you're making a difference. And so they can't be a bigger testament to the wave that you're causing, the change that you're causing, and the evolution that the people in New Zealand know that they deserve and that they're seeking. And so, that's a testament. And the faster you rise and the more likelihood it is that you're going to get elected, the more they're going to kick you, the more they're going to demonize you, the more they're going to minimize you, the more they're going to make you into a villain. And but the truth is always going to be sustained. Like my dad said, no matter what you do to the truth, it may take a week, it may take 10 years, but it'll be vindicated. So it's all good.
That's encouraging to hear. And sometimes, when you see the media attacks, and I'm aware of some of the media attacks that you've had to deal with, you just think to yourself, well, number one, where's the integrity? Why have you gone and totally misrepresented something about an ordinary person who's doing a good thing and talking about a righteous thing and a godly thing and even without the faith component in it, a decent thing? Because what we're talking about here is personal sovereignty. Everything that you speak about, Rashid, that catches people's attention and what we say is tied intrinsically into personal sovereignty, national sovereignty. Because at the end of the day, what we don't want to do here in New Zealand is see our country sold down the toilet into these international agreements that have no empathy or sympathy to our Kiwi way of life here in Aotearoa, New Zealand. And one of the things that we said way up front, along with our concerns with COVID-19 and the government's response to it, was that our Prime Minister Jacinda Ardern had stood on a Bill and Melinda Gates platform last August in New York, committing our country to the United Nations Agenda 2030, which means full implementation of Agenda 21, Sustainable Development. And as you know, that's, if you want to talk about all sovereignty, including medical sovereignty, that vanishes with full implementation of that, because that's when they will demand mandatory vaccinations, that's for sure, because you're part of the herd. You're no longer living in the provinces, you're now living in high-rise, highly densely populated super cities where you're not allowed out, unless you have a permit. So that's the ultimate agenda behind these United Nations programs that our Prime Minister is wanting to fully implement in New Zealand. And we're saying, no, you forgot to do something really important, and that was talk to the New Zealand people about whether we wanted that. And that, of course, in the heart of these agendas and programs is the deepest example of socialism that you've ever seen. And it seems, and as you know, with socialism, they use the strength of fascism and corporate power, whether it be pharmaceutical, banking, whether it be food production and harvest. They use the strength of the right, of the fascist right, to provide socialist strength and to implement totalitarianism. So what we're saying here in Advanced New Zealand is that we're onto it. We know what's going on here, and we're letting the people know it. Some people take it easily. Some people feel like they're swallowing a camel. But eventually, what we're seeing now is huge numbers of people starting to wake up here in New Zealand, and we're sending them to people like you. We're sending them to other freedom fighters around the world, and people are starting to see, hey, the WHO are saying this thing, and it can't be argued with, and it's not a conspiracy. It's a fact that our government is now flying in the face of accepted medical science, and they're destroying our rights and freedoms and our economy with it.
They're doing the same thing here. They're just completely every single moment. We were talking about, I'm traveling right now, and we had our event in St. Louis, which had 3,500 people there. Police were there, everybody was there. There were 3 people out of the whole 3,500 people that had masks on, and they were all media. And of course, I don't think that they weren't anything big, but and I was actually introduced as the most censored doctor in the world now. So apparently that's my new title. But what's interesting is even when coming here to Texas after we left there, and now we're going on from here to California for a live event that I have to give a presentation at. What's interesting is that when we arrived here, even though there are no laws to mandate wearing a mask, people in hotels are trying to quote saying it's a law, even though it's just a county ordinance, which is not a law. But they're trying to say that it's a law, and they're completely ignoring what the mandates are. The airlines are forcing people now not just to wear a mask, but they want you to wear a mask and cover your nose. And if you don't cover your nose, they flag you and they prevent you from boarding on the next flight. They had one of the SEAL team members, SEAL Team 6, that was part of the Osama bin Laden raid. They banned him from flying because he refused to wear a face mask. They've taken children and forced them to put on face masks, 18-month-old, 2-year-old kids. It's ridiculous. Over here, the same thing they're doing. So, it's important for people to realize that the mandates that they're trying to follow now are going against the governmental agencies that have been talking about this, because they realize, and they're backtracking because they don't want to be part of the lawsuits. But remember, the mandate is actually not and has never been the government. It's been Bill Gates and his cronies. And I think they're funding people. They're subsidizing them. They're giving them money to make sure that they make these things high enough, fast enough to prevent people from making a change or when the facts are known. It's kind of like what Goebbels said during World War II. He said that if you tell a lie enough times, people are going to believe it. Now, I just want to remind you of something. I know you're a very spiritual person, very religious person, and you were talking about that they take a common person and they villainize them, and somebody who's trying to do the right thing, the just thing, the godly thing. I want to share a story with you that happened to me. There's Dell right there. So let's see if Dell's coming on. I think he's in a car, so there he is.
Hey.
So Dell, there's Billy Kahika, who's running for Prime Minister for New Zealand, and we're glad that you're at least in the car. And hopefully you're not driving.
I'm not driving. I just was speaking with some people. I'm here in Kansas. There's a big freedom rally tomorrow. People standing up for their rights to not be injected with products that they don't control, or have to wear masks and be restricted from breathing the fresh, clean air that they have here in Kansas. But I'm about to get to a hotel, which was the plan to be on a computer, but I thought I'd check in here. We're a few minutes away, but as things go, you know how this goes, Rashid. We're traveling all over the country, trying to spread the word everywhere I can, try and help people, speak out about the truth. I'm trying to get there and do as much as possible, because this is the fight of our lives. This is the freedom fight of all times. And so it's really an honor to be on this call, watching, a destination for me that someone's never visited New Zealand and sees that as one of those places I would want to travel to from America. It's been on my bucket list my whole life, to watch what's happening with the destruction of freedom there, and think a place that is supposed to represent nature in a way that very few places on earth do, to be so unnatural in their response to what's happening in this world. I'm really happy to be a part of this discussion, because I still want to visit New Zealand, and under the circumstances, I don't think I can.
Yeah, well, that's one of the things that Billy and I were talking about, because right now nobody can go. If you can't go, period. But even me as a permanent resident, I have to go through a 2-week quarantine if I'm going to go to New Zealand. So it's pretty amazing. So Billy, I'm just going to continue that thought process while Dell makes his way to the hotel. Dell, thanks for jumping on.
Let me go ahead and check out. I'll be back in 5 minutes, and I'll be on a say. All right. I'll see you guys soon.
Good, perfect.
See you soon.
Bye.
So let me just get. Yeah, okay, he's out of there now. I'll just tell you, Billy, the story, and I think it's an important story to be aware of. And I had gone through a pretty harsh time with the medical board. I was in the middle of a big fight, which people say, oh, when somebody get on social media, so I'll have 30,000 positive comments, and then I'll have 300, comments that are so idiotic and so ridiculous. You people don't know, Dr. Buttar has been sued. He's had the medical board. He can't see children in his paid practice. He can't see cancer patients. I'm like, what? Do you not know how to read? I have an unrestricted license practice from the day that I've had a license for 29 years. I've fought the system every single time, and and I've maintained a 100% authentic, unrestricted license of practice. But they just conjure up things, and they think that that's going to be okay. They can just lie about it. And so this minister called, and at the time I was at the house. I was married at the time, and my ex-wife had left to go visit some of her family, but she had been to this particular church, and this minister was calling. One of my nurses actually works at the church, so the minister was calling to just see if she was going to be coming back to the church in the near future. And so I answered the phone, and I had only met him one time, and he starts talking to me and asking me how I'm doing, and I'm telling him everything's fine. And he says, Dr. Buttar, I don't understand this. He said, I know you. I've seen your work. I've followed you for the last 8-9 years. I know that Nina, one of my nurses, has worked there with you for, at least the last 10 years. And he goes, I just don't understand. Why is the media lying like that? Why are they saying such terrible things about you? I just don't understand it. And I'm listening to the minister, and I said, it's really not that bad. And he says, wow, that's such a positive attitude. I mean, how? And I said, well, no, I actually mean it's not really not that bad. I mean, at least nobody started putting me up on a cross or anything like that, And I thought it was the funniest thing, but that's a good point. Just think about all the religious leaders, right? All the people that really made a difference on our planet, that people that have become the spiritual leaders of various religions. Just imagine the type of atrocities and wrongness they had to do. You study the history of Moses and leading the people, across the Red Sea and being persecuted by the Egyptians, or you read about Christ and his crucifixion, or you read about, the Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him, and his quest to try to keep his people free, and how he was persecuted by armies 10 times, 20 times the size, and being victorious. And so all these things, we started looking at the history of anybody that's made a real difference. They were persecuted, and they were persecuted not lightly, they were persecuted heavily. And so I want you to remember that too, right? Because I know you're a person of great faith, you're a devout Christian. Just remember, the leader of the Christian movement, Jesus Christ, was persecuted pretty heavily. So if they don't put you up on a cross and stake you up there and let you die on the cross, and you don't have to be resurrected, then you're doing pretty good, right?
Exactly. No, that's exactly right. Great analogy and story there, and that's exactly what it's about. I mean, my wife and I, I talk about everything with my wife. As soon as there's anything said about me in the media, I take it straight to her and say, honey, this is what they're saying about me now. And sometimes I take it a lot harder than she does, and we'll pray together. She picks me up, dusts me off, and away I go again. And that's the price you pay for public life. That's the price you pay for taking a stand against evil and tyranny and the destruction of rights and freedoms. Exactly what Dell was just saying is exactly what's happening here in New Zealand. Is that, we know that the world is looking at us here in New Zealand and asking that question: what the heck? What's going on here in New Zealand? This is meant to be the, after the United States, God's zone of example of democracy, green doors, outdoors, freedom. Long-haired children running through the long grass and collecting seafood off our shores and all that, and being able to decide what you will or won't have in your body. But that is completely under threat now, by this government. They've really taken things to extremities. So notwithstanding that now they have no medical basis for their position, they're actually ramping up the attack on people that speak against the narrative and spread the truth. And what I mean by that is that we now have our Health Minister or Minister of Health, Chris Hipkins, now saying that he's considering punitive measures for people that spread lies and misinformation about COVID-19, and that the government is the only source of truth. Well, last time I did my history fact checking, the last time we had government say that, you could call them Nazi Germany, you could call it Soviet Russia, you could call it Soviet communist China, communist North Korea, and that's the type of totalitarian ism and narrative that these types of governments put out there. And so, what we're starting to see in New Zealand is that, the government's hostile, the media is hostile, but what's happening is you cannot fabricate and stop a true people's movement, and that's what frustrates the minor parties that hate us. We're now the third largest party in New Zealand. That's why the two main parties, hate us. The main government party, the Labour Party under Prime Minister Ardern, they just keep on trying to, use throwaway statements. We're conspiracy theorists, but sorry, it's a fact what we're saying. It's a fact that these claims.
Yeah, the conspiracy part, that's exactly what it is. It is conspiracy. As far as the theory part, there's nothing theoretical. This is a factual. So this is conspiracy real reality, not conspiracy theory.
Yeah, exactly. So one of the things that we're going to do once we get into power, either as government or as coalition, we are going to organise. We're going to want to see established what we call the ministry, the New Zealand People's Commission set up. It'll be an independent ministry. There's never been one before. It needs to be independent of all existing law enforcement agencies or statutory organisations that currently exist in New Zealand. It needs to be set up independently to investigate a number of concerns around COVID-19, around why we've been signed up to various agreements that if we discover that don't serve the people of New Zealand in our interests, we're going to want to know why, we want to know how, we want to know who, and we're going to want to know how much. And I mean that very precisely in that order, because it seems to me that whenever you go down the rabbit hole and investigate some of these issues of concern that I'm aware of, certainly, then you're left with a fistful of questions that need to be answered, and if they're not answered truthfully and honestly, then we're gonna truly press on with a serious investigation. And what I'd like to see is retrospective prosecution as well. If we can find out that people here in our government had committed treason or had operated with a proven conflict of interest, we'll be seeking to charge them and hold them accountable for that. And so that type of language here in New Zealand is frightening for the politicians. They hate it that we're saying that.
That's why they're demonizing you. That's why they're scared. They're trying to say everything they can to keep you from getting in power, because they don't want to have to deal with the wrath of the people of New Zealand once something like that's set up.
Oh, yeah, I mean, I'm angry. People are angry. Grandmothers are angry. Little old grandmothers that came up to me during the rally that we just had in Auckland. First of all, when they see me, they burst into tears and thank me and hug me and kiss me, and then they tell me how angry they are and they want this government out and held accountable. Because what we're seeing this week, we're having our wages subsidy program stop, which is basically business support out of the COVID-19 crisis. That has been so expensive and destructive to our economy, Rashid, that our grandchildren's children are probably going to be paying this debt down. And what we're saying is that this whole thing around the economic destruction emanating out of COVID-19, this government has no answer to how it's going to pay it down, no answer to repair our economy, and along the way, they're not only destroying our economic sovereignty, they're also destroying every other aspect of sovereignty: personal, medical, environmental, national. And so, g'day, kia ora, Del. Good to see you.
Good to see you too. And
when you come to New Zealand with my brother Rashid, who lives down the road from me, when he's here, we will be fishing together.
All right, let's do it. Sounds good. So
Billy, keep on. Tell Del what you just told me about this independent commission that you're pushing for. And right now, Billy came out of nowhere. His party's now the third largest party in New Zealand, and he's being demonized big time because of this commission that he's proposing setting up. So why don't you tell Del about that? Because Del, this is something we should have here in the United States.
Right.
Sure. Yeah, sure, Dell, and long-term watcher of yours here as well. Right up the front, a bit of bromanceism going on here. I was listening to you. I was listening to Brother Rashid here, and Rashid was in fact one of the inspirations for me to take a stand. I'm an ordinary New Zealander, father of 6, grandfather of 2. I have a vaccine-damaged child who's 20 years of age, so I've been onto the vaccine topic and CDC for a long time. Yeah. I'm aware of almost any sort of alternative narrative or story that you can think of, so we're on the same page there. COVID-19 appeared on our scene in New Zealand. I had, basically the same stance as everyone else when it first came out. I believed it was possibly going to be a bioweapon released on our public here in New Zealand. I'm an ex-military man like Rashid, and so I had deep concerns about that. So I locked my family down early, about a week early before the main lockdown. It was during that lockdown period where I really started to listen to Rashid's broadcasts. I was listening to some of your stuff as well, and I really got stuck in and put on my investigative hat and started researching the topics around COVID-19, peeling it all back. I call it the onion. I started doing lectures called Peeling Back the Onion that went absolutely viral nuts in New Zealand, and sort of exposing Neil Ferguson's failed projections and modelings, how that basically set the world in panic mode, which was amplified, propagated by Anthony Fauci, further propagated by WHO once Bill Gates had phoned Tedros to say that they had to, of course we're dealing with a pandemic, and so what I did is I put this all together, started talking about the geopolitical connection also with the United Nations Agendas 21, Sustainable Development 2030, and started doing these lectures that went viral over a period of time. I had not hundreds, not thousands, but hundreds of thousands of New Zealanders basically tune into what I was saying and demanding that I take a stand on a political platform. I resisted it like you couldn't believe. My wife said she'd divorce me if I pursued it, unless I could prove that God was involved with it, which thankfully he's in control of everything. So, yeah, I'm happily married, thank God, and we created a movement called the New Zealand Public Party, which ended up being rebranded in a merger with a sitting MP called Advance New Zealand. Now, what we've got a range of policies, but most of all, it's our number one policy is about repairing democracy in New Zealand. As you know, the COVID-19 health response bill is the COVID-19 health management strategy in New Zealand has destroyed many rights that we have taken for granted as to be the norm in New Zealand lifestyle and the Kiwi way of life. We now have a draconian law here which gives our government carte blanche to enter onto your property at any time of the day on the suspicion that you may have COVID-19 and take you and your family away and perform a medical examination or a medical procedure on you without recourse. So there's nothing you can do about that. They've done a range of other nifty things as well, which basically prevents you being able to defend yourself on a personal sovereignty basis using this bill. They've got other bills in train as well that they want to introduce, which will dramatically change our Kiwi lifestyle if left to run its course. Now, what I'm advocating for, what I was just talking about with Rashid just now, is that obviously that COVID-19 has been allowed to destroy not only rights and freedoms, but it has also destroyed our economy. We are in debt up to and beyond our eyeballs to such a level now that our grandchildren's grandchildren are probably going to be required to pay that down and pay that back. This country's government has no plan to pay that off, no plan to repair our economy. So, but besides the economic destruction is the destruction of dreams, hopes, lives, the amount of suicide that we've had here, the amount of domestic violence, the amount of deep concern and distress across all areas of community across our country have been immense. And so what I'm advocating for is that once we get into power, either by way of being the government or a coalition partner in a government, we're going to set up what we are going to call the New Zealand People's Commission, which will be a ministry. It'll be a statutory ministry, and its job will be to investigate the COVID-19 crisis and how our government is basically acting defiant to new and updated data which says lockdowns don't work, elimination strategy won't work. The lethality of the disease is a lot lower than what was first put out there. CDC, as you know, have now recalibrated their position around lethality, around IFR, infection fatality rates. But our government, who claim that these organisations gave them their stance and information to frame their policy, are now completely defiant on that and still persisting with a strategy that is destroying our country. Now, what I want to do with this People's Commission is set it up so that we will investigate it. We'll want to know the how, the who, the why, and the how much that's involved with this. We know that Jacinda Ardern is very, very friendly with certain what I call players in the chain of actors and players involved in this global narrative. One of them is, of course, Mr. Bill Gates, and we want to know all about it, but we also want to retrospectively investigate any international agreement that we've entered into, whether it be pharmaceutical, whether it be United Nations. We want to investigate those, and if they do not serve the people, we want to exit ourselves from those agreements, and then also find out the terms of how those agreements were arrived at, and whether those people involved in those negotiations acted treasonous or against the interests of the New Zealand people, and we will prosecute them and hold them accountable. First time ever in New Zealand.
Well, that's incredible, and the world will be watching that approach. But can I put forward, if I was you, what I think I'd like to see you do in addition? I think New Zealand sits in a really spectacular...
Del, hold on 1 second. I got to say something. Del and his attorney, Aaron, these guys are like master 3-level, chess players with strategy that, Del told me when I was told that there's going to be a position for me in the government once Donald Trump becomes elected in FDA or HHS. And I was like, there's no way in hell I would take that. Del looked at me and he said, if I find out that you were offered a position and you didn't take that, he said, I will punch you in the face.
I said, you'll probably destroy me after that, because I don't have military training. But I will, for the world, I'll give you one good shot in the nose.
So,
make sure you live stream it to New Zealand.
But then Del explained to me what things that they were doing and how they were doing it, and how if we had somebody in that could facilitate some of those things from a strategy level, my God, it was like, it's like talking to Einstein versus like a little child in diapers. So if Del's suggesting something, we need to turn on our ears and listen to this.
Please
well,
do.
I mean, it's really quite simple, but what I want to say is this, that, sure, there's the whole negative, there's the power, and I'm glad that you're investigating that and want to, and so do we, and we're going to be all over Bill Gates. I think we have stronger arguments in America for acts of treason, which is Bill Gates is an American citizen. I believe the WHO is a foreign agency, and many of the scientists involved there. I think there's a real basis to bring, treason, accuse or at least certainly investigate Bill Gates for working with foreign agencies to destroy the economy of the United States of America. And that's where we're very much similar with New Zealand. And the world is suffering from this financially. It's very destructive. But I want to say this, that I think that, as you're moving forward in politics, there's what you're fighting against, but there's also what you're fighting for. And something that I think New Zealand sits in a really spectacular position. If someone actually had intelligence, if someone like yourself actually got to be involved in the politics and the health of New Zealand, there's work that needs to be done there. And I don't know if I agree, I don't know where Rashid and I cross paths, but let me give you my perspective. I think that what we know about COVID-19 is that just like every other coronavirus in history or any flu, it's particularly dangerous for people in a very specific category. Over the age of 65, with comorbidities of diabetes, heart disease, COPD, these things, hypertension. What we've not seen in this world is a perfect approach to this. I think that Sweden offered us the best glimpse at how the world should be moving. Sweden, I think, has fared better than anyone else, and anyone that wants to hold up that they have a higher death rate than the surrounding countries, that tally will only make sense when this is all over. Once we're all through COVID, whatever this thing is, then let's have the tally of how many people died, because what we can say about Sweden is no more people are dying. This thing it's the only nation in the world that I know of that is open clubs and bars and never destroyed their business and industry. They're up and running. But the one thing I think, and you know, Johan Gisecki has just been elected to a major position at WHO. I'm assuming they're going to try and buy him and control him, but he's done an amazing job advising Sweden. But even those, I'm trying to remember the name of the guy that's actually in charge there, but they both admitted we did not do a very good job protecting our nursing homes. We didn't. We have a higher death rate than we should because we should have done a better job. I would like to see a policy in New Zealand that really nails this perfectly. And New Zealand's in a very interesting position. As a great interview that Gisecki did on Australia Sky News, where they said, well, look, there's almost 0 cases in New Zealand and 0 cases in Australia. You say the Sweden model works, but you know, we have 0 cases. And he hit some great, if you want this little piece, I think it's one of the greatest 4 minutes on the discussion of COVID-19. But Gisecki says, I think that New Zealand should be commended, and Australia should be commended for having, you know, stopped this in its tracks and really managed to avoid having any cases. He said, but my only question is, how do you ever open? When can you ever go back to work? When can you ever allow travelers to visit your nations? And New Zealand, a huge part of your industry is tourism. And you have no industry. It's number one. So your number one industry is shut down if you can't find a way forward. And what people seem to not really understand is, you know, this is just another coronavirus or anything else. And you and I know that, but it's dangerous for a very small group of people, and they've blown it out of proportion. But the point is it hasn't run its course in New Zealand. I actually believe that New Zealand is going to see a serious outbreak, or whatever you want to call it, the moment it decides to open its borders. The moment it decides, and sure, you guys could stay locked down. You could allow no one to ever travel there, no one to ever leave, and you can live in the prison of New Zealand if they want to follow the directive of the leader right now. But the virus doesn't go away. It doesn't disappear. You can't, and what I've been trying to make clear to my audience is this is the greatest health or medical experiment in the history of mankind. When they refer to Sweden as being a novel approach to the COVID-19 virus or SARS-CoV-2, it really isn't. It's the only nation that did what the rest of us did every single year, every coronavirus season since the dawn of man. We have let it run its course. There are death tolls to the very sick, as there always are. Only this time we tried something different. The World Health Organization, because of multiple agendas, but tried to see, can we hide from a cold virus? Can we hide the world from this virus? And we've proven we can't. New York lockdown, Texas lockdown, America's lockdown. Every single state that finally decides we got to go back to work at some time, the moment we open our restaurants, the moment we open our stores, it's true. The virus comes and we see a rise in cases. I believe that the virus is not as strong. It's run its natural course of evolution where it's not killing as many people. So maybe having waited is a good thing. But you're going to have those infections. You're going to have those deaths. As Gisecki has said very clearly, in Sweden, it has to run its course. I would say something that you could really do is promote an agenda to make New Zealand the poster child for how you move forward. Look, Tony Fauci just said, I think today, the vaccine will not be effective enough to get us out of the lockdown. The vaccine, anybody that knows how vaccines work, this is going to be, at best, a flu shot, which is 10% effective. No way that can stop the issues if there are issues that we're talking about. So someone needs a common sense approach. And what I think would be really powerful to see in a politician in one of the few remaining countries that has somehow got yourself so isolated and bubble wrapped, you're safe, but you can't move, right? You're suffocating inside of your own protections right now. You need a policy to move forward. And that's something I think Rashid could be very effective at. But, beyond just going after the attack on those that have put us in the middle of this, a proactive approach that really figures out a way that we, really take care of the nursing homes, really take care of the elderly that are truly at risk, while you put the population forward and your school children who have no problem with this whatsoever. You need to get to herd immunity. And the things that we're seeing now, it's not 75 or 80 or 90% of your population. All of the really decent science is showing that there's already an immunity in 60 to 80% of the population, because this is just another coronavirus. If you had this cold last year, you're already immune. So we really just need to get that 15 to 20% of New Zealand to catch this cold, most of whom will have no symptoms whatsoever. This is one of the most mild illness for over 90% of us. But what I would like to recommend is, I think there's a strategy that really says, let's protect our elderly. Let's make sure that the nursing homes, the retirement communities, that the doctors and nurses that work with them, that they are going to get extended pay, more pay to stay and not go in and out. You can't go home, can't go visit your kids for a month or two. We're going to lock you in with those. You're going to make sure that inside of those communities, they're getting out, they're getting sunshine, they're getting fresh air. We are serving hermetically sealed food that arrives, and so that there's no interaction with this virus among that one population that is really at risk, while the rest of us that have no issue whatsoever, no comorbidities, get out and develop herd immunity. New Zealand can lead the world on the coattails of what Sweden has proven. I think New Zealand has an opportunity to prove there's an even better way that will look forward into a world of potential future infections. And New Zealand could be held as having led the world instead of following as it finds itself in a position so often. I think that that's something that you could do that could really inspire New Zealand to say, hey, let's be that country. Let's not just be the, however many nations there are in the world that are hunkering in our basements terrified. Let's come out confidently and lead the world with what we now know with the science. That's something that I would just like to add to.
I completely agree, because there is a potential to set a precedence that could be instrumental in helping New Zealand become a leader in all the countries. And, just having experienced the healthcare in New Zealand, it's really not that great. I actually had said to my chief operating officer that if anything happens to me, fly me back to the U.S. because I don't want to be treated over here. I've met people that have been very inadequately and inappropriately treated. And again, it's just a simple change in perspective. And you know that already, Billy, and Dale already knows that. And so I think that's a really awesome strategic point, Dale. And I think that, Billy, you coming in and God willing, if God smiles on you, and the people in New Zealand, you become prime minister, that would be a phenomenal thing to set a precedence for the seniors, because the senior population throughout the world is being pathetically addressed. It is the largest intellectual pool on our planet with the most wisdom, and we're throwing them in these nursing homes and discarding them. And whereas we should be harnessing the power of their intellectual prowess and giving them an opportunity to help contribute to society, and not discard them in these nursing homes, but rather help them to further our respective nations. So it's a great opportunity, Dale. Excellent point.
Absolutely, and I guess to add to that, Dale, is that you just described exactly, almost paraphrased perfectly to my a big address that I did the other day with the media, exactly the same as that. What we need to do is protect the vulnerable at-risk part of our community, make sure that they're well funded, that the medical teams, that the residential care staff are well equipped to be able to do that, but we allow the rest of society to open up, because we know that the IFRs, we know, just as you said, Dale, that a good part of our nation won't even know they've even had it or have had it,
Right.
and that's evident because what they've been able to fail to do in these last recognised cases that have appeared in the community, they've not been able to find out the point of origin. They were saying that it came through the border. They haven't been able to justify that, really. They haven't been able to confirm that. Right. So what I personally am led to consider is that it's likely that community infection has been there all along, but people haven't been killed by it. Which, if you believe the narrative, COVID-19 death fear, which is the narrative here, which is the old narrative now, out of date narrative. Then people immediately think, well, I can't have had it. It's just the flu because I haven't died. And so our strategy in our party is to do that. It's to take what we call a risk-based management approach, which involves a very similar approach to how Dr. Johan Gesicki took in Sweden. I've examined his model up closely. I've looked at the economic protectionism involved in doing that, because our economy, Del, is just, we've got 165,000 New Zealanders that are going to lose their jobs over the next couple of months. Man. That's out of 4.8 million of us. It was announced today that our GDP health will drop 15% as a minimum. Australia is going to fall 8%, which they said was very, very high. Well, we're almost double that, and that's taking a conservative, happier approach to assessing that. And so our tourism sector, as you so wisely point out, is an important contributor to that GDP, being the number one provider of GDP. Number two is our agricultural sector, which has been also driven to despair by a hostile government that wants to turn everything into the green program of Agenda 21 Sustainable Development. And if you combine those two elements plus the general approach of locking everything down, our poor economy is basically ready for the defibrillator. And if we can't get that on, she's going to be going into deep arrest. And so exactly what you just said, Del, is 100% our approach within our party. I mean, I'm not like you guys. You guys are my mentors in terms of the medical stuff, so I will be calling you offline. And by the way, I've also promised Rashid a job here before we get into New Zealand. So
I don't want to get these jobs.
Yeah, we have to do a tug of war with them throughout the working year. But very, very seriously, our company is in dire straits. The world is watching us very, very closely. Yeah. They know that whatever happens here is a test bed for what happens to the rest of the planet, because I believe that COVID-19 is very much the implementation part of the strategy to obviously a globalist plan, and we're onto it. You guys are onto it. A lot of the world's waking up. The freedom fighter movement across the world is helping people that are snoozing, half asleep, to wake up, and the rest that are asleep, we have to be patient and persevering in the way that we communicate a consistent message about this faulty narrative. And I agree. Also, your commentary earlier about talking about Bill Gates. Bill Gates has received funding from our government for his programs. He was here a couple of months ago. That's verified. I doubt very much whether he was in quarantine for 14 days, which is the standard norm here in New Zealand, and flew in his private jet and then left soon after that. Basically, we're awake to what's happening in our party, and that's the difference. And what we're saying to the New Zealand people here is, from the medical basis, exactly what you've just said, but also for the first time ever, we're going to have a non-internationalistic, globalistic political movement inside a government to serve the people, rather than having the people try and serve it, because ultimately that's the name of the game. Collapse our economy, make individuals state reliant, collapse the state to make us internationally reliant on IMF funding, and that's how they get you every time. The model's proven time and time again, and we're onto it.
And just thinking out loud as well, and this is how we roll, right? We're brainstorming here, and Rashid, it's something that you said, and both you guys, there's a real opportunity I'm seeing here, which is that what people don't recognize, and they probably don't know in New Zealand, is that the majority of the international scientists of the world that we have looked to throughout time, whether it's virologists, epidemiologists, mathematicians, biologists, they're on Rashid and my side. They just don't happen to work for the WHO or Merck or Sanofi, Aventis, or Pfizer. You actually, I think once we get off of this call, what we should discuss, and when you talk about the weakness of the medical establishment, Rashid, in New Zealand, this is a moment where the greatest scientists in the world, I believe, would love to be enrolled to take New Zealand into their hands and say, we know how to do this right, so that you're not all alone as a politician. The science is under attack. What many people don't recognize is that science itself, that so many scientists are disillusioned at what's being called science, being driven by assumptions and lies and agendas driven by pharma. These scientists want to save science. New Zealand could not only lead the path forward on how we deal with these illnesses, these scientists and doctors, and I'm talking the best of the best, would love to come in and put together a platform with you to help New Zealand through this so that they can save science, not just save people, but save the destruction of science that's taking place. I think there's a huge moment here and an opportunity where New Zealand, where you can chart a course that not only says, hey, we were right about something, but we may need you to save science as we know it. And I think you could have one of the greatest international bodies of scientists that would assist you through that. And I think Rashid and I could certainly help put that together, because I'm talking to all of those people, as I know Rashid is also.
Well, it's interesting you said that, Dale, because you said the greatest scientists. I was thinking today, I was talking to an arborist, and he was telling me about some of his employees that don't even have a third grade education, that were asking, well, if this is supposed to be so dangerous and only the essential workers, and they've got a lot of people that are in construction, so they were considered to be essential, then why aren't all these essential workers dying in droves? Why are not all these homeless people dying in droves? So when the third graders or those with a third grade education are asking the pertinent questions, you start realizing
you're in trouble.
They're saving science.
Yes. Yeah.
Oh, absolutely. And just on that plan, Dale, we had last week one of the most hilarious things that happened. I was on a live talk show on our main political mid-morning show. Our former Prime Minister, Helen Clark, who was number 3 in the United Nations, she was the head of the United Nations Development Program. She was on TV speaking about COVID-19. She said a couple of things that almost choked me up as I was waiting to be interviewed. The day before, the WHO had announced that lockdowns don't work and elimination strategy is not appropriate to long-term success in dealing with COVID-19 from a medical basis and from an economic basis. And of course, when WHO speaks, it's the United Nations that speaks. We all know this. Right. Now, it was funny to me that Helen Clark, former number 3 in the UN organization, she sat there with a straight face and said, well, isn't it great that New Zealand is such a great democracy and lockdowns work perfectly well for us? And honestly, I sat there calm as I just about swallowed my tongue and choked on it, that here we have someone that was so very, very high up in the United Nations executive, and believe me, as you would understand, you do not become number 3 in the United Nations unless you are fully in on the doctrine. Yeah. And now saying, her rhetoric, pronouncing her rhetoric, which was in complete defiance to what the WHO had announced the day before. And I found that amazing that she said that, and that our medical establishment here in New Zealand, Aotearoa, didn't hold her up for it. And then, of course, just the other day, after the CDC had sent sent out a press release that had been picked up by New Zealand media talking about the lethality and IFR of the disease, talking about the transmission, virality of it. Of course, what happens, our Director General of our Ministry of Health here in New Zealand says that actually that the COVID-19 virus is 19 times more lethal and more infectious than a standard flu virus, winter flu virus. And, that is, the idea of putting together a panel of international scientists and doctors that will work with our own narrative challenging experts here, because we have profound epidemiologists in New Zealand. One team called they're self-depreciating. They call themselves the COVID-19 Plan B team, because they are university epidemiologists. One which is headed by one Professor Simon Thornley from Auckland University, and he said during lockdown 4, at the same time I started listening to Rashid's broadcast, that this was overreach, the lethality, and all that, the rest of it. The idea, and I said this as part of the New Zealand People's Commission, is that we immediately set up an independent medical and science team to come up with our long-term strategy to deal with this virus so that we can live with it as a nation. The idea, and I'm going to hold you to it, mate, because I'm taking up fishing when you come down here. I'm looking after you and spoiling you. All right. That you help me with that, because if we build this inventory of great minds, what the hell can they say to that? They can never go and be a politician. An ex-musician, ex-military guy, farmer, ordinary Kiwi. They can never go at me, but they can't ever go at these guys. So that would be amazing to do that, mate, I tell you.
One of the things that I'd want this scientific coalition work on right away is to understand the sophisticated nature of this virus, that knows that when you're eating or drinking on the plane, that it's okay, and then otherwise, or not to affect anybody that's in a liquor store, but in a gym or in a church, that is a problem. So I really want to make sure that that's the first priority that we put emphasis on, so that the greatest scientific minds can understand the intellect and sophistication of this virus.
Yes, the wearing the mask, the first 10 feet into the restaurant, then I can take it off once I sit down throughout the rest of the restaurant. Yeah. We got to figure out how the virus is that's working. No, it's I really mean it. We didn't talk about what we're going to say in this discussion, but this is what I love about this social media platforms and what we can do right now. I think everyone that's watching is watching what happens behind the scenes when Rashid and I talk. It's happening in real time. There's a real opportunity here. I mean it. We're going to work on it. I believe we can inspire probably one of the greatest scientific bodies of all times to support New Zealand and follow you in and say, let's take the greatest minds and really deal with this with an agenda-free approach to the issue. It'd be fantastic and could be world-changing, really. And scientists need that opportunity just as much as you need the opportunity to get back to work and have New Zealand be able to return to the beautiful mecca that it's been to the world for so many years.
Yeah, exactly. And just on that note, if you want to talk about, because what you're talking about is having independent scientists undertaking this work, and that's what I've been saying exactly that all throughout my campaign, that we need that independence, just the same way we need independent scientists to evaluate 5G human health impacts. We need the same thing here, because we have the telco sector providing the government its own regulatory advice to the government about implementing legislation around human health impacts assessment. So we need to get that autonomy back and independence back. But the thing I like about this is that currently our Director General of the Ministry of Health, his name is Dr. Ashley Bloomfield. He's ex-WHO between 2010 and 2011. This esteemed gentleman was a member of the executive board of the infectious diseases section in the WHO, but he wasn't a specialist in the communicable disease area. So, but of course. You spend a year in any organisation like that. Rashid and I both ex-military. I know that after 3 months of our basic training, you go in a civilian, you pop out the extrusion machine, a soldier, completely different human. And if you do a year in this type of organisation, you can be guaranteed that the indoctrination is complete and thorough. And what concerns me is when you have a doctor like that says that this disease is 19 more times communicable than a normal virus and as much deadlier, then we've got serious integrity issues with our Director General. And this is what I'm saying in media. This is what we're saying these things, Dal, and the government can't believe it, because what we're saying, we've got answers for the economy, we've got answers for housing, we've got all these. We're not a one-trick pony party here, but the COVID-19 issue is the one that crosses all sectors of society, business and otherwise, and it's just so destructive. So, yep, People's Commission is going to be very busy.
Well, I mean, I just think of that number. We have a known death rate now, really, of about 0.26% of those that have been infected. It's hard to imagine how that, like 19 times, gets us to 0.26%. Then the flu never existed. I mean, if you go down, let's reduce flu down to it's 19 times less than a quarter of 1%. Then if you got a flu shot, these people are telling you you're the biggest idiot that ever lived, because the flu must have no death rate whatsoever. I mean, these are insane statements. We live in a time where it's the worst kind of scientism. It's clearly religious based. It's not good science, which is why I think there's a real opportunity here. Anybody that has any critical thinking mind has got to be asking appropriate questions like, how is that possible?
Not even critical, just thinking minds.
Yeah. Yeah, just I think 4 or 5 working brain cells should get you to another realization what you're being told.
They're already saying third graders, literally. I mean, I'll give you an example of somebody that wasn't that literate but had brought that up. But they're saying that kids are making these correlations now, and they're stating them. I have a patient that I've been treating for autism. His name is Ronald, and every time he says his prayers, he's getting ready to get his driver's license. Actually, we've been treating for a couple of years now, and every time he says his prayers, he always thanks God for his parents and for me, and then he ends the prayer by saying COVID is bullshit. So his mother can't say that. But this is a developmentally delayed. I was like, I don't even think we can use that term anymore for him developmentally delayed. He's advanced.
It's right.
Oh no!
Not as delayed as the people working at the WHO, for sure.
That's right. That's very true. Very true.
That's amazing. No, it absolutely is. That's humour beyond humour. But the serious part of it in our country, what we're seeing though is, Dal, Rashid, obviously, a bit of fun fact here. Rashid has a place not far from where I live, and where I live, and up north in the northern part of New Zealand, and but things have changed so quickly in the last 6 months, 7 months. It's just unbelievable what's gone on here, and what we've seen. Apart from everything, it's these two. My joke that I said on during a media interview this morning is that, and it's a serious joke in some respects, is that we now have 2 kinds of people in New Zealand: those that wear masks and those that don't. And it's a divisive technique as much as any other. It would be the race card or whatever. And the other day we had a packed as rally, packed house. People come in to see my presentation during my campaign, and there were probably a couple hundred people squeezed into this hall, and there was one lady with a mask on. And it turned out she was the local socialist newspaper editor.
Right.
You get my drift.
Yeah, that's the same thing happened in St. Louis. We had 3,500 people there. Del, I don't know whether you know my new title now. I've been labeled now as the most censored physician on the planet.
Okay.
And so
it's a weird combination, right? How does a physician get censored?
That's right. If you go to my Instagram, I think you saw it already, Billy, because you commented on it. But when I walked on when they announced me, it was like 50 seconds of just people were hollering and screaming, and I just couldn't say anything because I stood around and I put my hand on my heart, how much it meant to me. But for 50 seconds, this crowd just whooped and hollered. And I remember thinking to myself that, you know, what you just said, Billy, too, about the face mask thing. I remember thinking to myself, there's nobody here that's wearing a face mask. And then I looked, and there were 3 people, and all of them were rolling cameras that had face masks on. So only 3 members of the media that were there that had face masks on.
Oh, you're amazing. You're what you guys are, what we should call you, rockstar freedom fighters. So I think that kind of works. And I've got a new one for you. So when the media talk about me and refer to me, I am the controversial, charismatic Billy Te Kahika. And my wife loves that because she says, You're not charismatic. My wife says, you're not charismatic. You're controversial. But you know, all those, you know.
Our wives, right? They have a way of really keeping us grounded. It's important.
Well, you know,
it's like, who needs enemies, man? If you get somebody like that, right? You got to check to see who she's voting for.
Well, she has to vote for me because I registered to do the vote a few weeks ago, so she's got to vote for me. I'll see her doing it. Well, no, I won't actually, because it's a private booth when you lay that vote down. But no, it's wives are designed. I'm sure they are for that purpose, to keep us men, you know, nicely grounded. And you know, we're talking about the media, you know, attacks that I've had in New Zealand in the last couple of weeks in particular have just been absolutely amazing. And my poor wife has endured all of it side by side with me. You know, my wife and I have a little ministry. We look after homeless people. I look after a little flock of faithful believers. We do things to serve our community all the time. I've worked with youth for years. I was a financial literacy and road safety advocate for youth for 7 years in campaigns across high schools across New Zealand. And you know, we've always tried to do good things for the country. I've got, you know, I'd like to think I don't have a bad bone in my body in terms of wishing anyone harm or being dishonest or anything like that. But jeepers, in the last couple of weeks, it's just been censorable, really, what the media have said. But what I do is, my technique is, when they say something, I get onto Facebook and I talk about it immediately. I'll say, look, guess what? I'll say, like, I had a girlfriend in the Cook Islands. She was 19, I was 33. And that turned into, I'm grooming young girls for sex in the islands, which is just this, you know, despicable claim. And everyone laughs about it.
Yeah, exactly.
But last week we also had claims that we had been dishonest with donations money. So, you know, we are very poor. We are the poorest, probably almost the poorest political party in New Zealand, because we don't have, we're only 12 weeks old. We don't have a big cache of funds sitting there. We've done everything that we've achieved in this time because it is a people's movement, and you cannot fabricate that. No matter how much money you put into it, if it's real, it's going to grow and it's going to grow and it's going to move. And
what are you now? You're the 3rd largest party?
We're the 3rd largest. After just 5 weeks of campaigning, I was rated 3rd equal preferred Prime Minister, which is almost unheard of for a nobody newbie like me. But last week we had these allegations about misappropriation of funds and all that. We were exonerated within 24 hours of the media claiming this, within 24 hours. And what we did yesterday, we got given a donation by a very wonderful, well-off gentleman of $50,000. We took it straight to light. We published all of our financial records last week anyway, and allowed people to have access to all of that. But what we did additionally yesterday, when we got that money, we did a press release, sent it across New Zealand with an update on our finances. Not one media agency picked the story up. Not one. You know, yet they'll pick up a story that of any other, you know, derogatory kind that they can think of. So, you know, I do have a question for you both. What is the latest on Anthony Fauci and his position with Trump? We can't quite see it clearly from here.
I don't think we can either.
Well, yeah, I think that's the beauty of Donald Trump. You know, for those that watch what he's doing, is he really, it's hard to understand the motivations. We know that we've got Dr. Atlas now being reported by multiple news agencies that he's in every single meeting, sitting at Donald Trump's side. He is not speaking to press, which is obviously a choice that they've made. But I think we have a voice in there of reason. I mean, I don't know where Dr. Atlas is at, and politics makes health policy very, very confusing. But I think we can feel comfortable that there is somebody that's knowledgeable and responsible inside next to Donald Trump. I think that if I was a betting man, I would guess at the moment, we were joking about this tonight with a small group of people here, that, should Donald Trump be reelected, he may even take his acceptance speech to say, Fauci, you're fired. Redfield, you're fired. You can just have him have his, the big moment they've all been afraid of, right? The big apprentice moment, and start firing people that I think from our perspective, and I've got no insight on this, but it is clear that Donald Trump has not appreciated Fauci's perspective. I think that Fauci's perspective looks to be being dictated by Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation. He's on their board.
Yeah,
this is an agenda driven by things that are not looking out for the good of America. And I want to let me just be clear about that from an American position. This is something that I say here, that sure, the 1% that are dying of the 20% that may get this illness. I mean, your death amongst the elderly has now been said to be multiple zeros after a decimal point when you look at a population-based perspective. We've drummed up fear. We are destroying our economy, and I think that's something New Zealand, I would think, is very aware of. Certainly, we should be in America, and that's the power of China. I think China is playing a major role in this. It's a major role in the WHO. And what is the one nation on earth that is not locked down right now, that produces most of the goods we're all going to need while we sit in our basements quivering in fear? It's China. Whether or not this was manufactured, whether or not this was released, all of those things, I think, will be determined by history as we look back. A lot more information will be revealed of things that we're investigating. I don't think there's been enough proof either way, whether this is man-made, not man-made, whether it's a weapon that was released on purpose or accidental. What we do know is China is the one nation that is capitalizing on the power of it. And America is facing complete and total destruction. When we grow up, when we live here in America, we do, and I know we annoy the world with our arrogance and our belief, even as children, that we're the greatest nation in the world. But that is hanging in the balance, and we're about to lose all of our world control over finance, over industry to China. We're ceding that power as we speak. As I've put it, China is on the racetrack and America is in a pit stop. And we are watching China take over the world. And so when I talk about it, I say, sure, there is a death rate to COVID-19, no doubt. I mean, we could argue how much more or less it is than the flu or the cold, but let me ask you this. In the United States of America, how many people would we risk the lives of? What would the death rate we would accept to fight China if they were actually attacking our borders and coming after our jobs and taking over our lives and enslaving us as people and taking over our lands and our homes? What would I assure you, we would put millions of our best and brightest and youngest on the front lines to keep that from happening. Yet because of this mysterious, invisible enemy, we are being inflicted upon with the same damage as China attacking us. They're taking over the world, and we're not standing up for ourselves because of a 1% death rate that I think if we put the scientific team together in New Zealand, we can cut that probably down 100%, I would guess. If way down. If that's it's hard to imagine how well you could do with real thought and what we know now. But does New Zealand want to be enslaved by China? Because this is what the world is facing right now as we sit in our basements and allow really a bad actor without good intentions for their own people or the world that undercuts, the salaries of the people, terrible working conditions. That is the communist, nation that is in the strongest position if we all decide our best bet is to hide, lock in our basements, wear our masks, and destroy our own economy. I think we should think about what risk we would take to keep that from happening as warriors, as soldiers, as nationalists for each one of our nations we live in. Make that the comparison. Take a look at it from that lens, and I think you recognize we should be dealing with this in a much different way than we are.
Billy, you're doing some stuff with the China aspect too, right? You told me that you guys have started.
Yeah. Yeah. So thank you for raising that, Dal. So what we've done is my co-leader in the party is a sitting MP, member of Parliament. His name is Jamie Lee Ross, and he exposed, whilst a member of the second one of the two largest parties here. It's a party called National, which is really your Republican equivalent. The Labour Party is really your Democrat equivalent here in our society here. And what he did was he exposed that the National Party was receiving Chinese Communist Party funding through covert means. But what's happening now is that now the main government party, the Labour Party, is now also under serious investigation for receiving money from the same sources. So CCP, we are absolutely incredibly heightened in our awareness of Chinese communist influence in New Zealand. What we've done in the last few months is take a great and close look at the amount of land inventory that has been sold to Chinese interests, which, as you would appreciate, if you're dealing with a Chinese company, a multinational company, you are dealing with the Chinese Communist Party without doubt. There is no way, anyone who doesn't think that is living in dreamland. And so what we want to do is take a new approach to stock taking, how much interest multinational Chinese business have in our country, investigate that using the New Zealand People's Commission, and then if it's not right, then we're going to have take some serious measures to rectify that. Huawei here in New Zealand, which we all know, everyone with half a brain knows that Huawei is an intelligence asset for the Chinese Communist Party. They have tried to penetrate all, if not as much, of the main powers in Western society with the technology, which is a backdoor to all intelligence, as you know, Rashid. And President Trump is more than aware of that, which is why Huawei is no longer welcome to practice. Right. Yeah. But here in our country, Huawei is everywhere. I'm not anti-tech at all. We just want to take a logical approach to making sure that this is safe technology to use. Yeah. The point being is that we know that a Chinese intelligence asset, i.e. Huawei, is very, very, very involved here in New Zealand. President Trump said something very, very eye-catching about 5-6 weeks ago, where he said that the Five Eyes relationship, which is really NATO plus the US plus Australia and New Zealand, was basically, he'd said that anyone out of the Five Eyes relationship that was using or involved with Huawei would not have access to military intelligence that the US would have. And he's right in saying that, because you would hate to think that when the US shares intelligence with a traditional fighting partner such as New Zealand, we fought all the wars with the US to this day. I'm proud of our military relationship with the US. Yeah. And when President Trump says he will no longer share information with any country that uses Huawei or has a relationship with them, then that makes me sit up and take notice, because all I've seen in the last couple of years is a very, very hostile Prime Minister towards anything to do with the US, towards anything to do with President Trump. And really, it looks like that our government would rather foster a close relationship with the CCP and Huawei than actually work with our traditional allies and form better trade relationships and come up with better approaches to guaranteeing intelligence sovereignty.
Wow.
Incredible.
Well, this is an inspiring moment to watch you, to feel your passion, your truth, you're on. I know that you're really in a position here where a small nation like New Zealand, I have a really good feeling about this. I have a really, very good feeling about you and what's taking place in this world. I think that there's a much greater power than all of us that has guided us to these places. It is clear that that is a position you find yourself in. And I think that if nothing else, we have, established tonight that there's ways we can really help build a team around you of people that are looking for many answers in this world. And there's an irony to the fact that New Zealand may be able to sit in a position as this tiny little dot on this earth to not be a follower any longer, but be a leader and to invite an international body of honesty and truth and forward thinking and really good science. And ward off this power, the industrial powers financing China. It's clear that the multinational corporations are all running through China. China's a large player. I think you sit in a position where you could really do something that could help shift the tectonic plates of truth on this planet. So it's an honor to know you. I know that once we get off of this conversation that it will continue behind closed doors. There's a lot of important information now that I want to share with you, but I feel your heart, I feel your truth, and I have to imagine that the people of New Zealand do too. So I'm with Rashid. I'm glad I was invited to this, and I want to let you know I stand with you. I'm going to sign out here because I got to go and march with a bunch, 1,000 people here in Kansas. But this conversation has only begun. Let's help make New Zealand a world leader. I think you're going to find yourselves in a position that may chart the course of history for this entire world.
Dale, you know that the United States and New Zealand are the only two countries that allow pharmaceutical companies to advertise directly to the public,
True.
I mean, yeah. U.S. to go to the New Zealand, I'm like, what was, check that part of it, but yes, you're right. I agree with you, Dale. I think that, Billy, your heart speaks volumes. I think the people of New Zealand have certainly heard that. That's why in 12 weeks, you guys are the third largest. And I told you that I was going to do everything I can to help you, that by October 17th, when is it October 17th elections?
October the 17th.
Yeah.
All right.
We're going to be talking again, and I'm going to hopefully get Bobby on in the next. Did I say that openly? I sure wasn't supposed to say that openly, but actually, you haven't said that name at all. Well, we'll see what I've now been obligated. Anyway, for the next couple of weeks, we'll talk about that. And Del, I really appreciate you taking time out. I know that you're on the road right now. I'm back in your neck of the woods right now, dude.
You are. We missed each other. Yeah. You're in my house. We're going to be having dinner tonight, but I'm out across the nation. That's the way these things go.
Well, we're supposed to have dinner with Nico coming up in the next day or so.
Oh, awesome.
You back on Wednesday or Thursday?
Yeah, I might be able to make a dinner happen. Let me know. Okay.
All right, cool. That sounds good. Thanks again, Del.
Absolutely. You guys take care, and I look forward to seeing what we can create here. So it's a beautiful time. Billy, take care, and my prayers are with you.
Thank you, brother. You too. Take care.
Bye.
Good luck tomorrow, Del.
Thank you. Bye.
Good night. So, Billy, you and I'll just stay on for another couple of minutes over here.
Sure.
And I want you to take a moment and tell your people, the people that have risen up to help support you and to make your voice representative of their voice, those that may not have heard of Billy Kahika now, but as up until today, I don't know whether that's presumptuous on my part, but I'm hoping that today there may be some people that are hearing about you that actually have a vote for New Zealand and didn't know about you. So I would like you, and we've said you've kind of talked about a lot of the things in the past and in the first two times we talked that were really, really good. But I would like for you to take a moment to say what you want to say to them. And I would like for you to mention those 5 stances, those 5 positions that you have, because I think that's really, really nice to hear. It's so succinct and it's so concise and it's so illustrative of what makes you different than everybody else. So please share that with us.
Yeah, Once again, very humbly to have this, humbling to have this time with you, Rashid, and with Dal. You guys are both very inspirational to me. The idea of putting together a super unit of scientists and doctors that will be able to help us repair our country and set an example for the rest of the world of how a science, fact-based, sensible approach can be taken to deal with COVID-19 on a long-term basis, using New Zealand as a test for that, is something that I would be deeply, deeply humbled and committed to rolling out in the right way, so that it is something that we can prove to the rest of the universe that when true, honest science and medical factors are combined with humans with integrity, that anything can be confronted and worked out to the benefit of the greater part of humanity. And that's basically based on a perspective that we love everybody and we care for each other, to work out that truth and love is what's going to set us free from all of this nightmare that we've been living in. Number one, Advanced New Zealand is the party in New Zealand that is talking about everything that we've spoken about today. We're logical, we're sensible, we're everyday people, we're not Freemasons, we're not groomed by corporates, we're not groomed by United Nations programs, we're not ex-members of the International Youth Socialist Organisation, such as our three top ministers, including Prime Minister Jacinda Ardern. We are fathers, mothers, husbands, we are wives, we are every aspect of society, every ethnic group in New Zealand that you can have basically as a part of our movement. And it's this type of movement of ordinary people who know how to get things done, who are smart and capable and contribute, that can bring integrity back into government and deliver on these 5 pillars that I'm about to talk about that we stand on. Number one, democracy, government integrity, and accountability. That's one block. Without democracy, you have nothing. Democracy is the government mechanism to ensuring that rights and freedoms are protected. That's democracy. We've lost that in our country today. We have a hostile to freedoms government. We have a socialist government that is using the COVID-19 crisis and its response strategy to destroy our economy, destroy our rights and freedoms. So one is about restoring democracy and having government accountability and transparency. Number two, economic, not only recovery but prosperity. We are a breadbasket nation here. We have the ability and the resources and the land resources to be the breadbasket for the planet. Our productivity sectors can perform as supported. We can earn new money for our country that will help us get out of our massive debt. Our economic plan and prosperity strategy involves assisting our productivity sectors and our export sectors grow and develop. Oh, I don't know if it's going on. Oh, I think we've just jumped. I was on a good run to you. Oh, broadcast interrupted. Oh, how interesting. Hello, am I still on? Yes, I think I am. I was having a good old rave on there. I'm going to talk like someone's hearing me. Vinny, am I still being heard? I think it says the broadcast has been interrupted in New Zealand. Wow, is that true? You still can hear me? Okay. Hey, maybe what we should do, Vinny, if we can can we go on to into a live call now? Because if so, I'll Skype into you. Lots of people are saying that they can't hear us, that we're frozen. We're offline in the United Kingdom. We're offline in Sweden. We're offline in the US. We're offline in Argentina. It sounds like we're gone. Yep. Do you want to set up a call, Vinny? Offline New Zealand. Wow. This is truly amazing. I'm going to try and Skype in. Wow.
All right, we have
brother. What happened there?
Okay, we're good. Well, you're still live on that live audio restream as well, so I'm not sure exactly what we're going to do about that. I've got to reset a whole bunch of things. So you're still live, so if you want to talk to the audience, you can go right ahead.
Okay, well, I'm just saying I think everybody is saying that we're offline. I'm getting all these people from around the world saying that we're offline now.
Yeah, we're off Rashid's stream, but my stream to the YouTube still going.
Okay, great. Hey, everyone. Kia ora. That was an amazing interview. Did you hear that one? Did you hear it all, Vinny?
Yep.
How amazing was that?
It's pretty good.
Wow. What about the idea of setting up a super medical team of amazing scientists from around the world that will help us get it right here in New Zealand?
Yeah, that sounds good. That's kind of what I've been trying to do with my my interviews of late, actually. Just trying to get all those great people from overseas who've got the experience, who know what they're doing, and just basically bring them in so we can benefit from their expertise.
Absolutely. Did you see the response that that Dell had when I said that Bloomfield had said that the disease was 19 times more lethal and viral? Oh, here we are. I'm back. I can see myself now.
There we go.
Okay. Do you want to?
Well, I mean, everybody who's been watching this has been watching what we have been doing this whole time. So basically just give us a brief wrap up. I've got a few things just to sort around the live stream in the background. So go right ahead, Billy.
Okay, mate. Yeah, I'd love to see some comments come up if that's possible. Yep. But I'm incredibly humbled by that interview just then. I've been a big fan of Dow's for some time now. I had a laugh the other week when I was watching him online with Alex Jones, which was a hoot. But no, to have the opportunity to tap into international resource like what these guys have access to help us pull together a super board of advisors and scientists and doctors that really do know what's going on, that can help our country, help our advanced New Zealand develop a policy that's going to work well. That's, I don't know what to say, Vinny. I'm absolutely thrilled by that. It shows you that these people recognise that New Zealand is in a major pickle due to the way that this government is attacking truth and medical science, and the things that we were saying right at the beginning, that they ostracised us and still are trying to ostracise us now about they can't. There's no way they can justify what they're saying. The truth is out. Everybody knows it, and yet our government is defiant of it and calling us, disseminators of fear and misinformation. Yet they're the ones guilty of the very crime, which is the classic Hegelianism that we can expect from a totalitarianistic government like this. I've said it before. It's almost like they've got the tyranny handbook out and they're reading it line by line and implementing it that way. So. I'm very excited. Each time I speak to Rashid, I'm absolutely amazed by how much love he has for New Zealand, because he has, he has the home. Oh, Rashid's calling back.
Okay.
Hold on 1 second. I'll just get that. Hold on 1 second. Hey, mate, how are you?
Hey, Billy, I don't know. Man, I've never seen my screen.
That was weird. Yeah, that was absolutely strange. Okay.
Still live with Billy, ladies and gentlemen.
Yeah, no, roger that, Rashid. Look, we can pick it up next week. Yep. Yeah, no, absolutely, and I'll give you a call. I'll give you a call before next week, brother, and. Yeah, wonderful. Take care, brother. God bless. See you, mate. Bye-bye. That was Rashid just calling back. He said he's never, ever, ever had that happen to him in his career of doing this for years and years. He's never had his screen closed like that ever before. So that's an interesting thing. I don't want to get conspiratorial. It's just very, very strange. But again, did you hear him give away about the Bobby Kennedy interview? He put his foot in it.
Yeah.
So there you go, it's out. I know we've been talking about it in New Zealand, but we've been keeping it quiet in the US and to the global audience. But there it is, all out. We've got an amazing opportunity to have a good conversation with Bobby Kennedy. If anyone knows anything about the Kennedy whānau and what they've sacrificed for the people of the United States to try and defend freedom and defend honesty and integrity in the government, that whānau have sacrificed as much as you can give. Obviously JFK, Bobby's uncle, was assassinated, and his own father soon after was assassinated as well. So they've been through a lot, that family. So and of course Bobby Kennedy was a guest speaker at the Berlin protests. He's amazing, and I can't wait to meet him and talk with him. And just offline as well, I have an opportunity to talk with these types of guys, and it's amazing. So as soon as our borders open up again, once we get into government, or if they have the smarts to do that as well sooner, then it'll be good to have these people come down and we can meet them face to face and work out how we're going to form this new international board of scientists and doctors that'll help New Zealand deal with and create a long-term strategy that will benefit and protect the vulnerable parts of our society, and get the rest of us moving the way that we know we can safely. I think that's really super important. But hey, life goes on. We've got an event here tonight in Taupo at the Taupo Cosmopolitan Club. We'd love to see people come into that. And
there's going to be copies of Behind the Green Mask, UN Agenda 21 being sold there as well. So if people want to go along and see Kane and give him some money in exchange for those, we actually, Mary Byrne, formerly of the Fluoride Action Network, actually gave me a call and she said, hey, we've done a deal with Rosa Corey and we can sell her books in New Zealand now. And I was just like, well, that sounds like a really good idea. And getting them all out to the people who are supporting Advanced New Zealand so that they know what we're dealing with as well, it seems like a very good idea.
Yeah, absolutely. That'll be great. I'll be pushing that tonight. I've got my copy sitting on the bed behind me in my motel, so I'm trying to quickly digest it. It's a great book. I love to read it, and very exciting times as ever. Vinny, thanks so much for your coverage and support to get this important information out. Things are ramping out. There is absolutely no doubt. Things right now are ramping up in a big way in terms of the way that the media are approaching dealing with Advanced New Zealand. Co-leader Jamie Lee Ross was on AM show today, followed by the Radio New Zealand interview, and they played my interview from last week that I did with them. And it's just so disappointing, that the media here is so, hostile to truth and fact. They'll just, try and call us conspiracy theorists, try and marginalise Jamie Lee, try and marginalise me, and never ever just looking at the facts. I'd be the first to say I've got something wrong if I had. Absolutely, I wouldn't have any qualms about saying, hey guys, I've made a mistake here, the information's wrong. But this government is defiant. It's no longer listening to its primary sources and channels of information. We've got to ask why. Why are they doing this? And I think that's the deeper, broader-based question that we need to ask and get an answer to. But that's something as part of our fight that we're fighting for. Advance New Zealand, your voice, because we blimmin' tick people off, man, I tell you. And as someone said to me, and as Rashid said, the attacks are coming because they know that we're penetrating and that we're relevant. We're the people's power, because they wanted this movement and gave us the mandate. We're not a cause party. We're not a protest group. We are a true people's movement. Our policies are what the people have told us are most important. And then, of course, we're the People's Party, because we're born on the basis of the concerns of the people, and you can't get more genuine and authentic than that. So thanks for having me, mate. I've got a whole bunch of people I've got to go and meet, and again to everyone, stay vigilant, stay calm, stay credible on a solid footing, and let's help our rest of our brothers and sisters in New Zealand to really wake up to what's going on in our country so that we can protect our futures.
All right, no worries. Thank you very much for your time today, Billy, and we will see you next week for TK Tuesday, if not earlier, if you have any other interviews of this like that you need restreamed at the same time. So here to help. Thank you very much for letting me do so.
Thank you, brother. God bless everyone. Take care.
Cheers, mate.
Bye.
All right, that's Billy T. Kahika. Ladies and gentlemen, you can go and check out the website and their Facebook page, Advanced New Zealand /NZPP. They are a sponsor of the show as well, so I'm very, very grateful for the amount of support that I'm getting as a result of helping them out, you know, that kind of thing. Ladies and gentlemen, you have supported the show massively. And of course, today I'm just helping out Dr. Rashid and Dell and Billy, you know, just get it onto a few more platforms. And the reason I can do this, ladies and gentlemen, is because of your donations. My little
apparently the Bubba really likes Daddy in the morning, but mostly just the morning. Hey, Bubba, Daddy loves you. Oh my God, you're so cute. My Bubsy. Hey, Bubba, Daddy loves you because he's so sweet with your little sausages and your chicken wings. Yeah, Daddy loves you. Okay, that's enough, folks.
It's real cute, eh? Oh my God, that Bubba. I want to thank everybody. Oh goodness, please don't open that. Force quit. Where are we? Oh goodness! We are slowing up the computer here, ladies and gentlemen. This is a little bit too much heat. So we're going to have to wrap this up and get out of here very, very quickly. All right, with that being said, ladies and gentlemen, the VinnyEastwoodShow.com has been supporting the truth tellers of this world and New Zealand since 2007. Please go to the homepage of the VinnyEastwoodShow.com. That's Vinny with a Y because it's the most important question. And Eastwood, like, go ahead, make my news. And go ahead, ladies and gentlemen, make a donation. Go ahead, set up an automatic payment through the PayPal or the Patreon or the KiwiBank there, ladies and gentlemen. Really, really do enjoy when people set up little automatic payments, whether it be like $1 a month or $5 a week or $300 a month, whatever it is that people are setting up. I appreciate absolutely every single one of them. And I apologize if I haven't, thanked you in person or something of that nature, ladies and gentlemen. I'm just ungrateful. So thank you. Thank you very much. Lastly, our sponsor, Lickster.co.nz. Let's set the market free again. Other trading website commissions can charge you like a bull. We won't charge you, and that's no bull. Lickster is an online aggregate marketplace of by and for every product, able to link buyers directly with sellers without taking a cut. A free alternative to Trade Me of the sellers for the buyers. A free marketplace for all. Go to Lickster.co.nz or lixx.co.nz. So that is most of our sponsors. Last, but certainly not least, in terms of sponsors and people to mention, is of course excuse me, Billy Te Kahika and Advance New Zealand, the New Zealand Public Party. So reclaiming New Zealand for all the people. If you are an expat, if you're listening to this from overseas, try and find some, if there's like New Zealand groups in your area. I don't know exactly how to find New Zealanders. All right, Google knows how to find New Zealanders, I'm sure, or the CIA, but find the New Zealanders, ladies and gentlemen. Tell them about Billy TK, tell them about Advance New Zealand, tell them about the Vinny Eastwood Show, and get them to come home. In whatever capacity that they can, at least get them to enrol to vote. You can go to, I think, votenow.co.nz or .govt.nz or look up New Zealand election and how to enrol to vote in regardless case, because there are, I think it was close to 1 million New Zealand expats overseas, and these are the best and the brightest New Zealanders, I don't want to insult anybody who's still stuck here in this accursed archipelago, but I feel like if I was smarter, I would have gotten the hell out of here too. But that's the thing we need. We need the best New Zealanders in the world. Most of them are in New Zealand. So please, ladies and gentlemen, as part of our international audience, try and find the expats out there. Tell them about Billy TK. Tell them about Advanced New Zealand. Tell them that their country needs them. You've been listening to the Vinny Eastwood Show. We've been broadcasting, or rather restreaming. Actually, the technical term is simulcasting. Dr. Rashid Buttar, Del Bigtree, and Billy Te Kahika, respectively, today, ladies and gentlemen. And I would like to thank the mods, thank the donors, and thank all my sponsors, and you, ladies and gentlemen, for liking, for sharing, for subscribing. And we will see you again sometime. I'm Vinny Eastwood from the Vinny Eastwood Show. I am not a credible journalist. I'm an incredible journalist.